The Biden administration is finally planning to reverse one of the worst injustices of the Trump administration, or at least they say they are. Eventually, the White House has announced that starting in May, it will halt immediate expulsions of migrants at the southern border under Title 42. That was the Trump-era program that enabled the Border Patrol to turn practically anyone away by using the fear of the coronavirus to justify it. Even desperate people who were urgently seeking asylum in the U.S., and even if they tested negative for COVID. Right-wing Republicans, as well as conservative Democrats like Arizona Senators Mark Kelly and Kyrsten Sinema, are having a freak-out about the end of this program. But nothing beats the reaction from former Trump aide, far-right nativist, and all-round awful person Stephen Miller on Twitter. He wrote, quote, "I was deeply proud to work on implementing the hugely successful Title 42 policy under President Trump." Miller added that by ending the two-year-old practice, quote, "the Biden administration is on the precipice of unleashing one of history's most spectacular travesties. The full-scale revocation would open the floodgates on a biblical scale." Refugees coming in on a biblical scale? Sorry, Stephen, but if you'd actually read the Bible, you'd know it's very pro-refugee and pro-migrant. Remember Exodus? Guess what that was about? I mean, Abraham, Isaac, Moses, Mary, Joseph, and the baby Jesus. Perhaps that's why in Leviticus, God told the Jews, quote, "The foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt." Of course, that's not what Bible-thumping Republicans mean when they use the language of biblical hordes. They mean that if you take away Title 42, the U.S. will apparently be inundated with migrants who will fundamentally change this country for the worse. As evidence, they cite an explosion of attempted border crossings since Biden took office. But here's what's so ironic. Title 42 is what's driving that increase in attempted border crossings. No, really. Many of those crossing are repeat attempts by people sent back under Title 42. Even the Border Patrol has acknowledged this. In 2020, when Title 42 expulsions began, the rate of repeat border crossings nearly quadrupled from 7% to 26%, and it stayed elevated ever since. To repeat, Title 42 caused a massive increase in repeat border crossings. It inflated apprehension numbers. It also cruelly and arbitrarily put a halt on all asylum claims at the southern border. And it deepened the appearance of an immigration crisis. This was by conservative design. Because Title 42 was never really about COVID. It was a wild stab at using a public health measure to cynically shut down all immigration into the United States at the southern border. All of it. A natural extension of Stephen Miller's attempt at a Muslim ban and his efforts to split up families who arrived at the border. Remember, the scapegoating of immigrants as vectors of disease has a long, sordid and racist history in the United States. Miller and the Trump administration revived this trope, using COVID as the excuse, even as Trump was downplaying the danger of the virus to Americans. On March the 17th, 2020, Miller first pushed for the CDC to use its powers to close the border over COVID. But the CDC's Migration and Quarantine Director, Martin Centron, refused to sign off on it. According to ProPublica, quote, he said, "I will not be a part of this." That's what he told a co-worker. "It's just morally wrong to use a public authority that has never, ever been used in this way. It's to keep Hispanics out of the country, and it's wrong." He was right. And he was overruled by Robert Redfield, the Trump-appointed CDC director. Now, 2 years later, both Democrats and Republicans keep saying the COVID crisis is over. That's highly debatable. But if they do truly believe that, then why not end the use of COVID emergency powers at the border too? Why not rescind Title 42 right now? Remember, we're not talking about the Trump-era Remain in Mexico policy that the Supreme Court forced Biden to keep. And you can't blame Joe Manchin for Title 42 either. President Biden could click his fingers tomorrow and end the horror that is Title 42. He has that power. Instead, he has repeatedly and shamefully extended it. It may now be coming to an end in a couple of months. But even now, the White House seems to agree with the bad faith Republican framing of this issue.
Of course, we are planning for multiple contingencies, and we have every expectation that when the CDC ultimately decides it's appropriate to lift Title 42, there will be an influx of people to the border. And so we are doing a lot of work to plan for that contingency.
Democrats seem to be terrified at the idea of any immigrants entering America from the southern border. They're afraid that Republicans will succeed in portraying the situation at the border as a crisis on the eve of midterm elections. Because as poorly as our nation handled COVID, we've allowed another disease to spread through America unchecked in recent years, the disease of xenophobia. Hi, I'm Mehdi Hasan. Thanks for checking out our channel on YouTube. You can see more of the Mehdi Hasan Show by clicking on any of the videos on this screen, and make sure you subscribe below to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. Thank you for watching.